Okay, guys, Pastor Josh Smith here. Um, so I've been hearing a lot of stuff on Forging It Forward and even on my other videos about how people have had not the greatest success when it comes to coffee can forges. And there's a lot of other people that have said, man, I can't believe how I'm able to even do your coffee can or with my coffee can forge. Um, the fact that I was able to take a hunk of lawnmower blade and turn this hunk of lawnmower blade into a almost finished, still have to put the scales on it and do a final sharpening, but almost finished knife out of a hunk of lawnmower blade using this little thing. How can you do it? Well, I decided, you know what? I know for me, just getting started, I didn't have another option. I don't have a coal forge yet to be able to build that and work with that, even to do hardwood or charcoal or anything else. I have the plans to do a dirt box forge, but one of the problems that I have with a coal forge or a dirt box forge or anything like that here, because I'm in Central California, it's currently, we're in a cool spell. It's like 82 degrees outside. It's in the next couple of days supposed to be in the upper 90s. Last week it was over 100 degrees for a couple of days. And most of the time, if you can't just shut that fire off right now, you can't have it. So a coal forge for me is going to be a little bit of a problem. So I also have the problem, I don't have money. I have hardly any money. I have to, as I've jokingly said throughout the years, I take a penny and turn it into a mile of copper wire. So what is the cheapest, easiest way to get forging? Just to be able to heat some steel, get that metal hot enough to move. So I thought, this is how I did it. Maybe if I show you how I did it, it'll encourage you if you're wanting to get into this, but just don't have the forge yet. This is a way you can do it. So I wanted to show you how I built my coffee can forge, show you all of the different ways I did it and the techniques that I used to make it. Once I finish with that, I will show you how to get it up to the temperature. I'll stick a piece of steel in there and show you how I do it. So please ride along with me here and pay attention, take notes. There will be a test afterwards. And please, guys, if you like what I'm doing here, like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to. Give me a thumbs down. I don't care. Just let me know what you think. So let's go ahead and get into this. So basic of the coffee can forge. Doesn't have to be a coffee can. This can of hominy. My wife and I. My wife is half Mexican, so we make menudo and pozole and other things that use hominy. You could get a big old can of pudding. I don't care what it is. It's just a number 10 can. I took and drilled 4 right here, and then just ran some 1.5-inch bolts with some lock washers or some lock nuts on them to just make some feet. And I just drew a line and drilled my holes, ran the nut and bolt through there, got it nice and tight. Doesn't have to be sealed in there, because as soon as you get done putting that together, you are then going to take and fill this thing with your refractory mix of however you choose to do refractory. After I get done setting those feet in there, I drilled another hole in the side right here that I used. It's a inch long piece of steel sleeve that I just went to Lowe's and bought a steel sleeve. I just took something that was going to be just slightly larger than my torch tip. So once I got it all set up, this gives me a set holding slot to be able to put that torch tip down in there to where it's not constantly rubbing on the refractory, so that as the torch tip goes in and out, it's not just going to chip the refractory off. Once you get this in there, and I just tried to drill my hole as close as I could, smaller than the sleeve itself, so that I could then bend it so that it would fit down in here and hold in place tight. Once I got done with that, it's ready to make the refractor to go in there. I used the plaster of Paris and sand mixture. It is a 50-50 mixture of plaster of Paris and sand. I know a lot of guys say, well, that's not great, it's not going to last. I've been using it for quite a while now, and I have noticed just a little tiny bit of deterioration, but from my understanding, any refractory, as you use it, is going to have a little bit of deterioration. So I did literally just, it doesn't matter what measuring cup you use, you just do a 50-50 mix of plaster of Paris and sand. So for every cup of plaster of Paris you put in, use the same size cup to do a cup of sand. I ended up using just one of my cups from the kitchen, just a drinking glass. And I just did a mixture in a bowl. Make sure you use rubber gloves so that you don't get this mixture of stuff under your fingernails, and if you're wearing a wedding ring or any jewelry, you don't get it in there, because I tell you what, once this stuff starts to harden, it's a little bit of a pain to get off. So use some rubber gloves. I mixed up that mix, added water just a little bit at a time until I had a good consistency that was like a thick mud, basically. Once I got that thick mud, I set the can upright just like this, and I poured about an inch of material down in the bottom. Once I got it level at about an inch thick on the bottom, then I took just it was a 1 liter water bottle. I think it was a Dasani bottle. I'm not sponsored by Dasani, but if they want to send me some sponsorship money, I'm good with that. So I took this Dasani bottle and I put it right up against that. If you can zoom in there just a little bit, right against where that sleeve comes in on the inside there. Just set the bottle up against it. And by the way, when you're ready to do this, just put some tape. I just put some masking tape over the inside of that sleeve, just to make sure that I didn't end up with refractory inside the sleeve in here and inside your tube, and then you've got to figure out a way to clean it out.
Don't forget to wrap the bottle.
Oh yeah, that's key thing. Bottle with saran wrap. I figured out that was the easiest way to get this thing out. I did all kinds of research, and I saw guys having all kinds of problems getting the bottle out afterwards, that because it was sticking to the refractory and all this. I wrapped it in saran wrap really good, so that once I was ready to take it out, I then just took a pair of pliers and grabbed it by the neck and twisted, and the bottle loosened up inside and just slid right out very easy, while the saran wrap basically kind of stayed put, and then I just pulled the saran wrap out. But once you get your bottle in place while the thing is in the vertical position like this, you put your bottle in place, and then you just start filling it with your refractory. And as you're doing it, I just kind of would tamp it with a little wooden dowel that I had, a stick that I found in the backyard. I just tamped it down as I was going in, just trying to get it nice and solid in there. Once I got it all solid, then I just took and tried to level it off and smooth it off along the top as best I could. And I will be honest with you, I had to make a second batch of refractory halfway through, because what I thought was going to be enough was not. I literally got about half full and then went, oh man, I'm out of refractory. So I had to mix more plaster of Paris and sand halfway through the process. Luckily, you got a good working time on this stuff, so I just expect you're probably going to need more than you initially think. I made this, once I got it leveled off, That's when the hard part comes in, guys. You at that point are excited. You finished the thing. You know you're ready to be able to do this as soon as it's dried. And within about a half an hour to an hour, the surface was hard to the touch. But everything that I had researched on this said when you do this, you have to allow it to fully cure. I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of folks have in trying to do this, whether it is with a coffee can forge or anything when it comes to blacksmithing. From my understanding of it, blacksmithing and anything to do with it is the key word is patience. You have to be patient. You have to give it the time that it needs. You have to wait for that steel to actually get hot enough to move. Well, you have to wait for this to cure. I waited 3 days for this thing to cure, and I tell you that whole 3 days, the whole time I was just going, man, I wish this would hurry up and finish so that I could just go ahead and fire this thing up. I want to get forging already. 3 days finally came around, and I said, okay, I'm good. I'm going to take the bottle out. So I took the bottle out and pulled the saran wrap out, and then I still wasn't ready to just fire it up, because just like when you're doing the refractory, whether you use Mizzou or whatever brand that you use for castable refractory, you have to cure it. You have to set it in. So I took the torch, and by the way, I'm going to show you the torch now. I stole this from my wife, guys. She is she likes doing pastry. She's kind of a pastry chef, and she likes doing creme brulees and things that she has to torch the top of it. So her brother bought this for her a while back as a birthday gift. And I've got one somewhere. It's the one that screws onto the top of the propane bottle. I just don't know where it is. It's somewhere tucked away in a box somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I dug around, couldn't find it. So I just thought, well, I'll just borrow hers. And it works out great because it's got this nice hose on it, so I don't have to have the bottle right there connected to it. Literally, it just torch. Just a standard propane torch. Once you think it's ready to go and you pull the bottle, after 3 days of waiting, you just kind of just run a little bit of heat through there and stick your torch tip in and let it sit for literally about a minute. Build up a little bit of heat. And after a minute of running, and just let it come back to cool. I told myself I'm going to let it cool down completely. I'm not going to touch it again until the next day, which was tough. I didn't touch the thing until the next day, and all I wanted to do was forge. The next day I go out there and I crank the thing up after the next day and brought it back up to temperature a little bit longer this time, and I didn't let it cool down anywhere near as long this time. I only waited about an hour that next time before I started bringing it back up again, and I did that 3 times, and after the 3rd time I said, okay, I'm going to go out here to the shop, because by the way, I did the casting on the back porch, and I then brought the thing into the house so that it would be in a controlled environment. We live out in the country, and there's lots and lots and lots of dust out here, so I didn't want it to get covered in dust and junk while it was curing, so I brought it in the house. And my first couple of heatings were in the house, which I'm
on the ottoman.
On the ottoman in the living room. My wife was not happy with me about that at all. She was just like, why are you doing that in the house? It stinks. But after the 3rd time of a low heat, I brought it out here to the shop, and I put it on this stump, which this stump is a hunk of telephone pole that my lovely bride found as we were driving down the side of the road. or driving on our way to church, she spotted it out the car window and said, "Hey, there's a hunk of utility pole out there that fit in the back of the car." Well, we have a 94 Nissan Sentra, and if she can pan down here and show you the stand that the anvil's on right now. So that stand that the anvil is on and the stand right here that the forge is on were the same piece of wood to begin with. And I am I'm almost just slightly less than 6'4", and this thing was taller than I am, and she thought it was going to fit in the back seat of our little Nissan. No,
Oops.
Not going to fit. I got it home by sticking it in the trunk of the car and hanging out the back of the car, and just drove the little ways home, a couple of miles at low speeds to get it home. But brought it out here. Once I got it out here onto its home, I fired it up. Once you crank the thing up, when I first did it, I didn't have a fire brick. And I was able to build up some heat. But I think the key, just like if you're using a Devil's Forge or something that you made yourself, the key is you have to try to maintain heat the best that you can. So to try to build heat up inside the forge, get yourself a hunk of fire brick, something that you can close this opening off as much as possible, so that as you're heating, still have access to be able to access your steel, to reach your steel in there. But at the same time, as it's building up heat in here, you're going to allow this to hold heat in there. I figured out in the process of making my lawnmower blade knife that in order to actually build up heat, you have to not only have the torch in there in the position that it's in right now, but as it's building up heat and you look in there and you watch and you're just patiently watching the color of your steel, once you start noticing that it's getting hot, you start moving back and forth in here for a little while and run your heat down the length of your. It starts to heat this end of the piece of steel up, and after it's heated this again and let it heat on that end, and you go back and forth, building that heat and allowing it to just saturate all the way into that piece of steel. Because if you research and you learn from the guys that have been doing this, and you read, and everything that you read says, if you don't get your steel hot enough, if you're trying to forge it cold, it's still not hot enough, you're going to be putting cracks in your steel. You're going to be putting imperfections into your steel. It's going to not forge as easily. It's just going to be a whole lot more work for you to end up with a product that you think is finished and you're ready to go, and then some crack is in there because you didn't forge it hot enough, and it ends up breaking on you the first time you go to use it, or the third time that you go to use it, whatever it is. So I encourage you, as I said, the key is patience. Go back and forth, build that heat, make sure that it's hot enough before you start hammering on it, because if you don't wait and go back and forth, it's not going to be hot enough. And you're going to be sitting there going, well, yeah, it's a coffee can forge. A coffee can forge won't work. It won't get hot enough. I tell you from my own experience with this that a coffee can forge will get hot enough. I made this chisel. This chisel didn't hold any time at all. It's not the best chisel in the world. First tool I made. After making this tool, tapering it down, squared off end on this end, straightening it all up. This is a piece of coil spring. It's a good tool. I need a tool, make a tool. I didn't have a chisel. I needed to make a chisel. And I'm happy with it. I was able to take this hunk of coil spring into a usable, workable tool. Now that I have the steel in here, let me move it a little bit because you just have to keep watching it. Steel around, watch how it gets hot. And as it's going back, watching it, because unlike if you've got a Devil's Forge or a nice big forge made out of a propane tank or an air compressor tank or a piece of square tubing or whatever that you made or bought, unlike that, you're not going to get this thing up to temperature and start forging metal in 5 minutes. It's just not going to happen, I'll be honest with you. It's going to take a lot more time than that. But if you give it the time to do what it needs to do and get the heat built up, you can forge metal. Looks like we're starting to get a little warm. Is it anywhere near as a blower, a burner, forced air, a ribbon burner, anything like that? No, it's not. It's not anywhere near as efficient, guys. But if you're just starting out and you don't have anything better, this will at least get you forging. It's something to get moving. And it's something that if your dream, your passion is to forge some steel, what better way to do it than to just do with what you got? If you don't have the money, go spend $5 and go, or $7 I think for the small package. It's getting a little windy, guys. A small package of plaster of Paris. Go to the local playground and scoop you out some sand from the playground if you need to, if you can't afford the $3 for a sandbag. Buy you a can of coffee or a can of hominy for $2, or a big old can of green beans, or whatever you need to. Just do your normal grocery shopping. Just buy a number 10 can. But once you get done going back and forth like this, making something simple with the simple stuff that you've got, do you have to put that sleeve in there? No, you don't. Just find you a marker that's about the same size as your torch tip. Shove it in there to just be a spacer, and then pull it on out. Use saran wrap so it'll come out. But use your marker to create that channel. If you don't want to spend the extra couple of dollars to put that sleeve in there, do with what you got, because if this is something you really want to do, nothing's going to stop you. I've seen guys that don't have an anvil. John Coffey blessed me by sending me this anvil, this railroad track anvil, and I absolutely love the thing. Jim Patterson blessed me with this pair of tongs. Do you need an anvil? Do you need a pair of tongs? No, you don't. If you, the Vikings used to use a big log or a big piece of stone or whatever. You just need something with some mass to beat on. Do you need a real fancy hammer? No, you don't. You don't need a real fancy hammer. I spent $10, went to Harbor Freight, spent $10, and I used my bench grinder here and ground the face smooth, and I ground the peen smooth, and just used some sandpaper to just get it smooth as I could. Something to beat on with. You don't even have to have one of these. You just get you a claw hammer and smooth the face. You have to have a pair of tongs? No. Grab you a pair of pliers. Make sure you're wearing some good gloves because your hand's going to be real close to that steel. Get you a pair of vice grips. Whatever you can grab onto that steel with to start off with. If you just starting out, you can't afford to buy a forge yet. And let's say you work with a whole bunch of guys, and look, I don't drink, but let's say you work with a bunch of guys and you know everybody that you work with drinks beer. Get yourself some small steel, and it doesn't have to, every piece of steel that I've got basically has been something that I didn't pay anything for. Get you some rebar. Go scrap. My wife, like I said, she's a keeper. She found the utility pole. We're driving down the road. We're driving down the road again on our way home from church, and she says, "Hey, I saw a coil spring on the side of the road." Pulled over, found this coil spring on the side of the road. Good coil spring, good steel. Talk to your friends. Everybody seems like just about everybody knows somebody that's got a lawnmower. Every now and then your lawnmower needs a new blade. Say, "Hey, before you throw your lawnmower blades away, can I have them?" Whatever it is, talk to your local mechanic. Say, "Hey, your leaf springs." Put an ad on Craigslist. Whatever it is, as you can build up this material, get yourself a little material and say, "Okay, I'm going to make bottle openers." And I know that everybody that I work with drinks beer. Sell these bottle openers that you found the scrap for free. Make some bottle openers. Sell them to everybody that you work with for $10. Every one of those $10 pieces, put that $10 bill in a piggy bank. And real soon you're going to be able to afford to buy a forge or buy the materials needed to make one of your own. Put ads on Craigslist. Say, "Hey, I need an old propane tank." Anybody have an old propane tank? You can't fill it with propane anymore, but you can cut it open and make yourself a forge. I suggest if you're going to make yourself a forge out of a propane tank, you do not use sand and plaster of Paris for your castable refractory. Save up and buy yourself some cable and buy yourself some Mizzou and make yourself a real forge. But you can do it on the cheap. Shop around. Buy a part here, a part there. You can't afford all of it at once. Don't buy it all at once. Buy it when you can afford it. Set the stuff aside. It's still going to be there when you're ready to build it. And eventually, after selling enough bottle openers or letter openers, or even if it's just something as simple as doing like James Davis did and making yourself one of those camp cup holders that's just made out of a piece of straight round stock that you just bend the thing around and have a little foot step on it to just sink it down into the ground, and it'll hold your mason jar or your red Solo cup, or I've seen folks that make them for wine glasses, whatever. Something simple and cheap that you can turn around and sell to your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, folks that you know. Sell for just a little bit of money, just a cheap little price, and every single thing that you sell, set that money aside to be able to afford those next pieces for your forge. I'm hopefully real soon going to be getting my new forge, and I appreciate the fact that the folks that have helped me out to be able to get to the point to where I'm going to be able to do better than my little coffee can. But you know what? I'm blessed that I have this coffee can, and that it has allowed me to take, I don't know if y'all can see the color or not, but just a little bit. I'm not moving. Sorry guys, we lost the camera there. Lost the color, but I wasn't moving the torch back and forth in there to get it up to temperature. But once it's up warm, it doesn't take very long. Get it back up to temperature again. And in just a second, as soon as I get it warm again, I'll actually put it on the anvil, give it a couple of whacks, and see how easy it will move with just a little coffee can forge and a propane torch stolen from your wife. So y'all want to hear a preacher joke while we're waiting?
Yeah.
So this priest, a rabbi, and a minister, they'd all been real good friends, and they'd been fishing buddies back and forth for a long time. And this Baptist preacher, I'm a Southern Baptist preacher, by the way, Baptist preacher moves into town, and he's trying to get to know the other clergy guys in the area. And the Baptist, or the priest, rabbi, and the minister invite this preacher to go fishing with them. So they hop in the boat and they're out there fishing. They've been out there for a couple of hours, and then all of a sudden the priest says, "You know what, guys, I'll be right back. I need to go to the restroom." And he proceeds to hop out of the boat, walk across the water over to the bank, disappears into the bushes, comes back a couple minutes later, walks back across the water, hops right back in the boat. And the preacher's looking at him going, "How did that just happen? How did he walk across the water?" He's just sitting there stumped. And a few minutes later, the rabbi says, "You know what? I kind of have to go now too. I'll be right back." And he hops out of the water, or hops out of the boat, walks across the water, goes to the shore, climbs on up in the bushes, does his business, walks back across the water, and hops back in the boat. And the preacher says, "Well, you know what? I know I'm a strong man of faith. My faith is strong. If they can do it, I surely can. Guys, I got to go too. I'll be right back." And he hops out of the boat and proceeds to sink. And he's splashing around, half drowning. And the priest turns to the rabbi and says, "Should we tell him where the rocks are?" just a little funny from a preacher. Okay, we're up to temperature now. I'll go ahead and get it onto the anvil real quick. We're going to just give it a couple of whacks real fast just to show you how it moves with this little coffee can forge. And then we're going to go ahead and close this video out because it's about dinner time. Alright, we're going, guys. So what started out pretty round is now pretty flat. Does it have great heat? Is it gonna heat on that thing for hours? You have to get it right back in there. Watch your steel. Listen to how it's moving. As it starts to make more of a ting noise, shout out to James. As it starts tinging a little bit more, you know it's not ready, or it's starting to get cool. Put it back in the fire. Get it hot again so that you can start moving that steel again. Don't forge it cold. Just saying this to say, don't let something as trivial as "I can't afford a big old forge" stop you from forging. Go get you a little bit of plaster of Paris. You don't even have to put the feet on there. Just shove something on either side, that a couple of rocks or a brick or something on either side, just to keep it from rolling all over your workbench. That's all that you need. A hammer, piece of steel to beat on. If you have access to an actual anvil, awesome. If you don't, get you a big old hunk of tree stump, or I've seen the guys that bury a split maul or a sledgehammer into a stump, a log, whatever, something that's got some mass that you can bury that piece of steel in that you can beat. That's all you need. But for now, thank you for watching. Get out there. Don't let it stop you. Beat on that steel. Build yourself what you need to build. Be as cheap as you need to, and if you need any advice, please don't hesitate to reach out. Comment on the video. Find me in Forging It Forward, or send me an email or whatever, and I'll be happy to give you any advice, any help that you need. Thank you for watching. As I said, give me a like, comment, subscribe, dislike it, whatever. I know I'm long-winded and annoying, but thank you for watching, and God bless.